Hi everyone, it's Neve here and welcome to my art journaling channel. This is a project for the ScrapFX art journal page, and it's using the very brand new rice papers, which are divine. They're one of my favourite products. So I'm just starting off with my large Dina Wakley journal, which is why it doesn't quite all fit on the screen. It's a really large journal, and I'm using some Paper Artsy paints in some warm colours, and I'm just going in with my fingers and finger painting, so just mixing the colours up together. Now these are quite a translucent paint. It does have a matte finish to it, which makes it really good for doing colour pencil over and so on, which you'll see a little bit later on. But you can see that yellow, even though it's translucent, does stand up to the other colours. So it's really rough and ready putting on the paint. You can see it drying really quickly, but you can see the marks from the use it up page that I had underneath. So I didn't mind that. I wanted to have some extra texture on the page. So now I'm going in and adding some more pattern by using some of the paints that I'd used on the page and just sort of extending those colours out to the side of the page using my stencils. I really love geometric stencils because they just add so much to your page. I know that ScrapFX has some stamps similar to this, so if you didn't have a stencil you could certainly use stamps to do the same thing. Now I'm going in with this really swirly star stencil, which I don't use very often, but it's actually quite nice, and I really liked how it ended up being used on this page. Because the yellow is transparent, you can see I've mixed it with the white here as well. If I wanted a true yellow, I would probably stencil the white first and then stencil the yellow over the top, but I really didn't mind that it was sort of that blended colour. It was pale enough on the page that it wasn't really going to be an issue. Usually when I'm doing big sort of focal things like this, I'd probably only stick to sort of 3, but because this page is so big, I just kept going until I sort of filled in all the gaps. But I tried to keep an odd number on the page, and I certainly overlaid them to the edges so it looked like it was continuing on. So once I finished drying it, I then decided to get my scribble on with a white Posca paint pen and just do really scratchy lines around the stars, just to pop them out from the background a little bit and add some white back into the page. Now I'm holding my pen quite loosely, I'm not holding it very tight at all, and that sort of adds to that really random loose effect that you get. So if I had tried to copy those perfectly, it would have stood out really obviously if I'd made a mistake, whereas because these are kind of loose and rough and ready, it really doesn't matter how they look. I find often if you're putting more than one line over, that really helps. You'll notice occasionally I have to take my pen off to the side and reprime it. This pen has been well loved, so it does need primed more often than most pens. Now I'm going in with some text in some black ink on the background, again just sort of adding in that balance of white and black. So this is the image that I have chosen to use, and it comes in a sheet with a large head and a small head from ScrapFX, and some little quotes that you can cut out and use as well. And while it looks really opaque, once you glue it down onto the page, you get this really translucent look to your image. Now I was kind of playing around with this because this is such a large page. I wanted to ground the head in some way, shape or form, and I didn't particularly want to draw a neck and a body in, and I thought I could sort of put it over the top of a magazine image, but it really just didn't work for me, so I decided to be brave and just draw it in. I'm going in with some gel medium and gluing down my image, and you can see immediately as you glue it down how translucent it gets. So it just sort of melts into the page and you get that beautiful bold image against your background. And it means, particularly for those people who love doing their backgrounds, that you don't lose out on what you've got in the background. You can see it through. And you can see at the top I'm gluing down a quote. Usually I wait till I've finished a piece to glue down a quote, and in this case I really wish I had, because I kind of went in a different way when I'd finished it. And having that quote there, it was just in the way, and I couldn't take it off the page because it glued down so well. So I'm just going in again with Paper Artsy paints. This is vintage lace, I think, which is just a really neutral colour, and I've put it on, but I've actually wiped most of it away. What I wanted to do was just to blot out some of the background so I could colour over the top of it and get some shadows and sort of match it to the colour of the rice paper I had, so it sort of looked like one piece. Now I'm going in with some Prismacolor pencils and doing some shading and colouring in my face. Now, playing with pencils is a new thing for me, and I've become a little bit addicted to it as I'm using them more and more as I'm working. I find it's a really quick way to add some shadowing to a piece, and if you've got a little bit of a method or a madness or colours that you like using, it doesn't take all that long if you don't have to think about it. So I've got a little range of colours that I like to use in my darks, my medium shades and my lights, and once I pull those out, I'm pretty confident about where to put them on the page. In real life, obviously, we're not so purple toned, but the purple does give a really beautiful shadow effect to our skin. So you can use any dark colours to shadow with. The purples are just ones I choose. And you can see how well the colour pencils are going over the top of the rice paper. It was really, really smooth. Now, the gel medium I've glued the rice paper down with is a matte gel medium. So that obviously helps give the tooth to the page when I'm colouring over with the pencils. You may need to do a coat of clear gesso over the top if you have a glossier gel medium. So just be aware that not all gel mediums are equal, and you may have to do a little bit of playing around if you want to do colour pencils over the top. Now, if you wanted to go ahead with paint, that wouldn't be an issue at all. So once I've coloured in my image, I'm now going in and doing the hair, and again sort of using a light colour and a medium and a dark colour to do in my shadows. And because this is such a bold image and the shadows are there for you, it makes it really, really easy to colour in. You don't really need to think about it all that much. The other thing is, because the lines are quite thick on this too, you don't necessarily have to be as precise as you would have to be on a finer image. So that's a really great thing for colouring in. So I found this really quick and easy to do. As I was doing this, the image itself was really making me think of the pop artist Roy Lichtenstein, I think is his name, and his sort of cartoonish scenes that he used, usually with a woman in the lead and a little cartoon bubble coming off her head. So that's where I went with this. I decided that I wanted to do a little thought bubble coming out of her head with a quote in it, and that's where I got a little bit frustrated with myself, because I wish that I had left the quote, that I could have put it into this little bubble instead of putting it just above it. It just didn't quite work for me, even though I love that quote and I'm glad it's on the page. It's just not in the right position. Excuse me, sorry. So I'm using again the Paper Artsy white. You can see it's quite a opaque white, I say, as you can sort of see it coming back. If you do a few layers of it, it becomes quite opaque, but I didn't mind that you could see some of the background coming through. The little journal that you saw there is my Use It Up journal, so if I've ever got any leftover paint on my palette, I tend to paint it into that little journal, so I've got some backgrounds ready to go. I then, because I wanted to sort of go with that pop art style feel, use my Stabilo All pencil to draw the lines around the thought bubble. And one of the bonuses of the Stabilo All pencil is, if your page is warm, which it was because I just heated up that paint, you actually get a nice thick waxy line, and it runs really smoothly onto the page. So if you ever want that sort of line on your page, or a slightly thicker line, try warming your page up as you put the colour pencil on, and you may find that works for you. I came across this quote. It's a quote quote from Roy Lichtenstein about his artwork, which I loved, and it made so much sense, particularly when you look at the page next door too. I always wanted to know the difference between a mark that is art and a mark that wasn't. And I suppose in my exploration, in my art journal, that's something that I've been playing around with a lot, you know, things that I used to think was just doodling, I now think is an artistic bike on my page. So this is the close-up of the final piece. It was lots of fun to do, and if you can get your hands onto the new rice papers from Scrap FX, I'd highly suggest you get them because they're amazing to work with. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye for now.